everybody, and welcome along to PSGL PSF1 Season 33. We are about to start the season, and I'm very much looking forward to what's going to happen. My name is Jess Ball, and what's not changed this season is who's joining me in the commentary box. It is Aiden Carter. Aiden, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jess. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to a really exciting season. Season 32 was really interesting, and Season 33, with all the changes that we've seen in the very short off-season, promises to be even more exciting. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this season.
Yeah, me too. And obviously, one change for this season is the top three in the championship last season. They got moved to the PC side. I think all three of them were in F2, with one of them as a reserve. So it's pretty much an even playing field as to knowing who's going to win. And we also got the F2 champion, the F3 champion, and the F4 champion on the grid as well. One of them is a reserve, so that's exciting. Of course, we've got quite a few drive. Most of them are from F2, and half of them are from F1 from last season as well. So, yeah, I think it's the first time coming to this season not knowing who's going to be top of the pecking order.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting, isn't it? Because we kind of went into last season kind of knowing who the front runner is going to be based on what we saw at the end of the previous season. But like you said, all the top drivers from last season, the top three in the championship, were kind of quite a long way ahead of the rest of the field. Now that they're all gone, it's hard to say. And we saw it a lot as well last season. Of course, the overlap between F2 and F1 pace-wise was actually quite small. So I think you're going to see a lot of people that are new to the top tier that are actually going to be right at the front straight away. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. There's not a clear favourite, which I think is for the first time in a few seasons. Which is actually really exciting. I think even more exciting than we've really seen.
Yes, and you may be wondering who is in our grid for this season. Well, I'm going to be telling you who's going to be in our grid for this season. So we have got Facecam, who is on the grid this season. He is in the AlphaTauri, and joining him in the AlphaTauri is OP Rowan. Of course, we've got the Aston Martin pairing of Stefano and Nando Jr. Nando, of course, being in F1 last season, doing a very good job, and Stefano was, of course, in F2. Of course, we've got the Shizou pairing of Jensen and Tom. Jensen was season 31 runner-up. Struggled to get up to his pace last season. Maybe with his main rivals gone, he can get back up the pecking order. We've got FVR Stefano now. There's two Stefanos, and we're going to call FVR Stefano Steph because he started the season off in F2. One of the favourites going into this race, I think, because he won the F2 race last season when we last visited Spain. And joining him in the McLaren will be Cazizzo. In the Mercedes, we got Fabio Marcados. Now, they were teamed up in the Williams last season, so they decided to upgrade, just like George Russell did, and go into the Mercedes. Now, very good at the strong half for Fabi in the first half of the season, but in the second half of the season, he struggled. Marcados, he was strong in the first half. Middle half, he was a bit weak, but his strong results towards the end of last season were very good. In the Alpine, we've got Rick, who of course did very well in the tiers below last season, as well as Orion from F2. So those two are pairing up for this season. We got Asako. Oh, well, he said Asako. I'm an idiot. In the Williams, we've got Harry 12i and the Maya. Harry obviously being in the tier below from last season, being promoted to F1. Namaya obviously being in F1 for the last two seasons. In the Alfa Romeo, we have Frankie, who promoted from F2 a few seasons ago. Was in F1 for his debut season. Didn't too bad. Got his maiden podium in Abu Dhabi, which was great to see. And obviously, we were talking about the pace difference. It was not that big. Frankie definitely showed that in Abu Dhabi last season. Then we got the F3 champion of Max with us as well, which is great to see. And then we got the halves of Deso and Kian. Now, Kian, I believe, finished third in F2 last season, got promoted, I think, from F4. And he won, I think, the F4 race last season, or was third, I can't remember. But I remember him doing very well. And I'm trying to remember who was in the Red Bull, but one of them was Volakongan, who is the F2 champion from last season. And we know how the F2 champions do here, usually pretty well. So got a lot to live up to. And then we got our reserve drivers of Shizu Rick, who is obviously filling in today, replacing one of the drivers who can't make it. I believe it's Louis. And we got Jerome, who is a reserve, I believe he'll say F4 champion. And then we've got OP Roby, who is your free reserve. So that's your grid for this season. Any ones that stand out, in particular the ones that maybe moved up this season?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of names to look out for, isn't there, for people that have moved up into this one for this season. It's kind of hard to say who's going to be the front runner. I think there's so many different kind of names that you could point to having really, really good seasons. I think Kian definitely one who's kind of climbed up the ranks very quickly in PSGL as of recently, so he's definitely one you've got to look out for. He could continue his rise up through the field. Harry as well, definitely one to look out for FVR. There's a lot of names, but of course we've also got a lot of good names as well coming back from the previous season that are going to do really well, that you would expect to do really well as well. We've got people like Tom, who had a pretty poor season by his own standards last season, trying to bounce back after finishing runner-up, of course, in season 31. And you've also got Asacombe, of course, who won this very race this time last season, so, and in dominant fashion. So there's quite a few people you've got to point to from moving up and returning drivers in the top division that you could look at as well. I think another one we're going to have to look out for, I think, for maybe the majority of the season is definitely Marlon. He's going to be an interesting driver to follow for the season to see if he can improve on his racecraft from last season. He had the pace all season long, he just couldn't quite get the results. So yeah, a lot of names to follow, and I think it's going to be pretty unpredictable to start this season.
Yes, and the Spanish Grand Prix was the opening round last season, and there was some news, wasn't there, today on Twitter, if you were checking that out. They removed the last chicane for the 2023 real-life version of the Grand Prix, which I think a lot of people were relieved about, including me. Obviously still on the game, so there were a few people in the F1 chat on Discord saying, can we make it no rules so we don't have to do the last chicane? But no, I think Connor turned that excuse right off, and we're not doing no rules, luckily, which is great to see. So without further ado, let's get into qualifying, and with our first driver, who is going to be setting a lap time, and it is OP Kian. Now I'm trying to see if he wrote something for us as one of the drivers. Nope, he hasn't, so we'll just go on board with all that. You're heading past turn 3, quite hard in terms of traction, and heading towards turn 4, where we've seen quite a few overtaking. We've seen quite a few incidents last season, heading towards turn 5 and 6 as well. You're going to aiming for that right-hand curb. Obviously, the stewards are going to be keeping an eye on some of those track limits, because there's some that pretty much the game can allow you to cut, whereas the stewards will not allow you to cut, of course. Now, this is not always hosted the Spanish Grand Prix. It's been hosted at Valencia for 5 years, between 2008 and 2012. You passed a newly profiled version of the circuit, which was there last year, and they raced here last season, of course, in PSGL. And there's obviously no bump past turn 12 and 13 anymore. And this is the last chicane that the drivers won't have to face on the F1 23 game. So I think we're looking forward to seeing that when that comes out. So Kian up to the line. What is his lap time going to be? A 1:16.423 for the Haas driver. We got the Aston Martin driver who is going up next, which is Nando. 1:16.4. Now the F2 pole time, if I have it written down somewhere, was a 1:16.1 was the F2 pole time, and the grid was just so close. I'm expecting the F1 grid to be close as well. Stefano, P1 at the moment in the other Aston Martin. Where is Asacombe at the moment? He's in the pits, but his teammate Rowan, who got demoted last season to F2, back in F1 for a point to prove. He's going to come up to the line with a 1:16.8. What can the Ferrari do of... oh no, Tom's going into the pits, and it's our F3 champion from last season, Max, up to the line, 1:16.3. So he's currently provisional pole at the moment. Namaya then going towards turn 10. We'll see if he can improve on his lap time. And Aurelian comes across the line in 4. Margados 5th at the moment. Not quite the times of what we saw in F2, but obviously the track is evolving very, very quickly. Of course, with the new Williams, has the new Duracell livery bit on the car, which I really love as well. Looking forward to seeing that on the new game. But Namaya up to the line, and it is provisional pole position for Namaya. I do remember when he was in the Red Bull last season, he did very well at the start of the race. Struggled by having a lot of spins, so let's hope history doesn't repeat himself for his first round this season.
Yeah, definitely one to look out for tonight is Nemanja, like you say. It was Nemanja and Marlon, of course, were teammates last season at Red Bull. When the first round of the season, it was a shame, wasn't it? Anytime they seemed to end up in second place in the race behind Asicom, they span out of second place, and it happened at least 4 or 5 times between the pair of them in this race last season. So yeah, Nemanja will definitely be hoping not for a repeat of that one. So he's definitely going to be one to look out for this race. We know he's got the pace around here, so definitely want to keep an eye on. Marlon's first run, though, not quite up to the pace we maybe would expect, a 16.7 down in. There's only 4 tenths off, but he's down in 14th at the moment. That's how close the grid is around this track at the moment. This is another one of those tracks where the grid knows the track so well that the grid ends up being very close, and it's just hundredths that can separate you from maybe a 4 or 5 grid place drop. So yeah, a lot to look out for tonight. 4 drivers that haven't set the times are 4 drivers all returning from F1 last season, who are all very good around this track at this point last season. So definitely wants to keep an eye out here. Fabi definitely, as well as Asicom. I think Asicom's definitely got to be the one to look out for on this running quali. If he can get to the front of this field, Asicom is so strong around this track. He could definitely be, I would say, one of the favourites for tonight, as he's just starting off his run now, just behind Fabi in the Mercedes.
Well, to be honest, usually the person who wins the first race of the season doesn't usually win the championship, unless you're Dan Erko from a couple of seasons ago, obviously now in PC full-time as well. We'll be interested to hear what the new drivers can do as well. In particular, our champions, Max. I was speaking to Max earlier on today, and he really wants to fight for the championships this season. I know he's in a higher tier, but that is his main goal for this season. He likes Portugal, which is something that is good because that's the final round of the season, and that is where the drivers are going to have a lot of pressure if they are in the championship. He thinks that Kian is rival, but Max feels like he's struggling at the moment around this track. But at the moment, that doesn't translate in the times because he's currently sitting in P2. So probably he was doing a little bit of sandbagging with the times. But anyway, Kian then, he's about to finish off his second lap time as well. Of course, we've got Vola Kongan, who was the F2 champion. He was a bit more pessimistic in terms of his title chances. He just wants to have to score some points this season. And he would probably want to stay in a DRS train. Will be in a tough battle for him. But he just wants to have some fun and score some points. And that is interesting to hear from different champions. We have one champion who wants to hit the ground running right away. And then we have one champion that is just happy that if he scores some points, and that's a good thing. But we did see one come down from up from F3 to F1. The first season he was in F1. He finished, I believe, 3rd or 4th. The next season after that, he was F1 champion, and he's now on PC. So, do you think Matt could follow the footsteps of Rudy? Is that what probably he's trying to say in his interview questions?
I think it's definitely possible. Yeah, Rudy, I think season 31, of course, was his first season in F1, and he was definitely a surprise. Rudy was in season 31, wasn't he? Of course, Dinerco pretty much dominated that championship, and Rudy started 2 rounds late into that season. But behind Dinerco, you've got to say Rudy was probably the fastest driver that season, having moved up from F3, I think, the previous season before that. So there's definitely room for him to be able to do that for Max. And of course, being in the same team, I believe, as Rudy as well, it could actually be quite a benefit, as Kian's just improved to go to the top of the timesheets on a 0.2. So good lap there from Kian, puts nearly a 10th of a second on the field at the moment, but I'm sure we're going to see a few more laps coming in at the moment. I think Stefano in the Aston Martin at the moment is on a pretty decent lap by the looks of his middle sector time, so he'll definitely be one to look out for, along with his Aston Martin teammate Nando, who's coming up to the line now, just finishing off their next run in quali. They cross the line and go up to P6, so a slight improvement there, as Stefano just losing the rear of the car, coming out the chicane, just about gets away with it, but I think he potentially may have lost some time there. No, not quite. He gets back ahead of his Aston Martin teammate, but it's not really a lot, as Aurelia now moves up into P4. Frankie now moves up into P2. So it's all changing in these second runs, and it's still incredibly close throughout the field.
A Talent Factory won. It was a 1-2, but Markados was like, you're not having a Talent Factory 1-2, and he wants to turn it into a TF10 in second place, but he wants to potentially get pole position. Now, let's see if he can have a better run around this track, does Markados. He was very happy with his P7 in the championship last season, and he got second place in Abu Dhabi, and he got pole as well in that race, so he felt like Abu Dhabi was his highlight for him. And he would say Hungary, Brazil, and maybe Baku is his strong track. I didn't think he'll say Baku as one of his strong tracks, but to be honest, that is a good thing that people want to go different to the norm. But because there was a lot of people we were interviewing that saying Baku was their worst track. But about Spain, he thinks he can get a top 5 result, but currently sitting in 3rd place at the moment is Marcados. I think he's definitely all right for doing that. And obviously, we were just speaking about Stefano, who just wants to get points, and more points. And he wants to get top 10 finish on his debut. But certain moments we've had around this track. Michael Schumacher's won the most wins out of here as well. His first win for Ferrari actually came around here. 1996, which was the last Spanish Grand Prix to be affected by rain apparently as well. So it doesn't rain that much in real life. Obviously it's seen around this on this game quite a lot though. Hosts the MotoGP quite a lot around this track. So we see a lot of MotoGP races around here as well. So we've got the Maya about to start, I believe his second run. I believe there's a lot of people coming out the pit lane, so I'm guessing a lot of people want to get 4 runs in qualifying as well. So there's certain people that I wasn't expecting it to be down there. We've got the 2 Ferraris down in 15th and 16th. We've got Asapko that's not hitting the ground running yet, but he's about to start his lap. And we've got Marlon, who did well in qualifying last season, down in 18th. And we've got Kazizel struggling on his lap, only 20th so far.
Yeah, definitely quite a few surprises at the back of the field. Definitely, like you say, I think the Ferraris do stick out as probably the biggest surprises at the back of the field. I think Tom, you would expect to be a lot higher up considering his performances in previous seasons of PSGL F1. I think Jensen struggled a lot last season, so it's maybe not much of a surprise to see Jensen struggling a little bit again in comparison to some other people in this field. He's about to go down another place by the looks of things, I think, as Harry goes into P16 just ahead of him. And yeah, I think Jensen actually, I think he can probably count himself maybe a little bit lucky that he's actually stayed in PSGL F1. You've got to say, with the performances he put in last season, he really struggled, especially in the second half of the season. So I think he managed to get in by the skin of his teeth. So this is maybe a bit of a break for him. And yeah, it's not paying off so far as Nemaya crosses the line and is the first person into the point ones in qualifying. So a good lap there from Nemaya on his second run in the session. And yeah, we've definitely got to keep our eye out for Marlon. P19 on the grid and P20 for Kazizel as well. Not where they're expected to be. They finished, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were 5th and 6th potentially in last season's championship, or 5th and 7th. So they were right up there inside the top 10 with many good performances. So yeah, they are way out of position. You would expect a lot more from them, as I believe we've just seen another improvement from Fabi, who's gone P5.
Yeah, Fabi always likes to have a strong start of the season, but a week towards the end. So we'll see what Fabi can do as he tries to score many points this season. Let us know your predictions in the chat on who you think is going to be doing well in Spain and across the rest of the season as well. Who are you rooting for? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget you can check out our title sponsor, GT Omega. You can get 5% off GT Omega products by using the discount code PSGL, and you can click the link in the description. If you want to find out more information, use the command !GT Omega, as you can see on the screen. So check them out. Absolutely fantastic. We got our chairs for them as well, and it's very, very comfy as well. We've had those for the last few seasons. So 5 minutes left to go on the clock. Few lap times on the board. Kian, second man into the 1:16 ones at the moment. We got a Red Bull up to the line now. 1:16.4 for Manon. Not quite an improvement from him, sadly, to get into that. Volakongan, who's currently sitting in P8. A decent show for him as well. Only stays in 8, but he's just about to start his lap. What about the other Mercedes? Marcados, who's going for turn 10 right now. But I think there's a lot more people that are going to finish off their runs. I think I just saw now Peen come across the line. I believe that was Aurelian, but it might have been someone else diving into the pit. No, it's Aurelian going across the line in third. Another person to 1:16 ones. But Marcados then, looking good so far with his lap. Can he snitch pole position? Snatch pole position. Answer that is yes. 1:16.0. Could we see a lap in the 1:15s?
Oof. It's a risk. There's definitely possible. I think we're looking at some people a bit further down who still haven't reached their potential. Deso to the line in the Haas, currently P12, goes P11 with a slight improvement there for Deso. But I think one driver to look out for is Asacombe. He was on a lap that was a 10th.5 up as Max now goes to the top of the timesheets in the Alfa Romeo on a 16 flat. So good lap time there from last season's F3 champion. Brilliant stuff there from Max. But yeah, I think Asacombe was on a lap that was a 10th.5 up, and he actually ended up spinning coming out of the last corner into the gravel trap. So there was definitely potentially a 16-1, maybe a 16 flat on the cards there for Asacombe. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a tough call to see if anybody can get in the 15. So we know what our PSGL F1 drivers are like in their final runs in quali. It never usually comes together, does it? So we definitely have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, some people still to set really good lap times that we know could have good pace in them. Marlon's still down in 17th because Zizzle still hasn't set a representative time in this session yet at all. So it's definitely something to look out for. By the way, I'm just looking back at last season's pole position time for PSGL F1. Asacombe was on pole with a 16.114, so we have now gone faster than last season's pole position time. But just to put into context how badly Marlon's struggling at the moment on a 16.47. Last season qualified 4th on a 16.176, so he's 0.3 of a second off what he managed to do at the same track last season.
Well, there has been a few updates, obviously, since the first round last season, or maybe a lot of people have just improved at the game and with not that much of a pace difference. And it's very great to see the drivers that have been promoted from the likes of F4, F3 and F2 that are shining. And the old guards, some of the old guards are right down near the back of the grid or not improving on their times. And pretty much if they see the drivers that won in this grid last season do well, it kind of shakes them up a bit and think, hang on, I will need to potentially improve as well if I want to try and beat them as well. But obviously, we've seen people from promoted tiers do well before in PSGL F1, so it's not really that much of a difference, to be honest. But to do it on your first race and potentially get pole position on F3, it's amazing. I believe Marlon came from F3 a few seasons ago, so and he did well last season, finishing the top 10. So maybe he could challenge there. But again, like you were saying, he needs to find a few more attempts. So that is just amazing that we've already beaten the PSGL PSF1 at pole time from last season. Now, a few predictions in chat. NH Plays is predicting Markados for the championship. Anas is rooting for Frankie. Adam is rooting for Orient. A lot of people are rooting for Folakongan in the chat. So, and we got Carl Dyer in the chat as well. Great to see all of you supporting PSGL. 1 minute to go as people who are going to start their laps right now. As Asacombe, last season's race winner around here, he's got to find 3 tenths, which is a big ask to get pole position. In my opinion, I think that the pole time is going to stay the pole time, but I hope these drivers can prove us wrong.
Fingers crossed they can prove us wrong. Yeah, I was just on board with Harry, who was going to be the first person to be on their final run, but he's actually spun through turn 3. So Harry's qualifying session is over and done with before it's really got going here. So 18th is the best that he can hope for. We've got 30 seconds left on the timing, by the way, and Max is not even into the final sector. So I don't quite think Max is going to make it to the line in time, potentially to start his final run. He might be right on the dot, but either way, his tyres could be a bit hot as he starts his final run in this qualifying session. I think the first person then to finish a lap in this session will be Fabi, potentially in the Mercedes. He should be the first person to cross the line. And as I say that, he spins now coming out of turn 11. So Fabi's qualifying session is now over and done with that mistake. So we've now got to look to the Alpha Tauris to be the first ones to finish. Rowan will be the first across the line. He's slightly up on his time at the moment. Frankie behind him on the road is slightly up as well. Asacombe's a 10th.5 up on his time in the middle sector, so we'll keep an eye on them. Rowan first to finish off the second, crosses the line and ends up P6 with a great final sector.
Yeah, he found a lot more time in that final sector. Asacombe comes across the line in third, so pretty much he almost matched the time he set last season then. As Kian comes across the line in P2, 2,000 slower than Max. That's absolutely incredible. Luckily, Max came across the line in plenty of time to finish off his lap, so we'll see if he's found some time. Namaya was purple in the middle sector, but we have a few more people across the line, so I think we got one of the Aston Martins who's up to the line. Safana, unfortunately, has invalidated. Volakongan then. We'll see what he could do. He's only 13th, but he needs to find a few attempts to get pole position. He stayed 13th for now. We got the Williams, I believe, of Namaya. Comes across the line, 4th place. We got the Alpine of Aurelian up to the line, P7. We got the Mercedes of Markados. He comes across the line in pole position. What can Max do? He's a tenth down in the middle sector. So I don't think he's going to improve. And it looks like he was slowing down that final corner, so he was struggling a little bit there. It's not going to be pole position for Max, but it is going to be pole position for Markados.
Brilliant stuff. Absolutely brilliant performance there for Markados, picking up off of the strong end to last season for him. Pole position, and yeah, absolutely brilliant time on the board there for Markados to go to the top of the timesheets. But what a debut qualifying session for Max and Kian. Second and third on the grid in their first races in the top tier. That is a brilliant start to their season for their first attempts at PSGL F1. So hats off to them. And yeah, brilliant start to their season as well for their qualifying. But now the race comes, and the race is a completely different matter.
Exactly, and who would have thought that the guys who moved over to PC have made this grid even more interesting and even more close. It's always great to have some fresh blood in there that can challenge the likes of the top guys, and we have some of these guys also competing in challenges as well. I believe Kian is competing in challenges as well, so it's a great warm-up for them before they start challenges in, I don't even know when challenges is on, so don't ask me. But anyway, we've got Markados, Max, Kian, Namaya, Asacombe, Tom, Aurelian, Nando, Deso and Rowan, your top 10. Then we got Kazizel, Fabi, Frankie, Volakongan, Rick, Stefano, Steph, Jensen, Marlon and Harry, the top 20, separated by less than 5/10 of a second, which is crazy. But before we go into the race, let's have a quick word from our title sponsor, GT Omega, and we will see you in just under 30 seconds. Welcome back to PSGL PSF1, the beginning of season 33, as we take you through the opening round of the championship, the Spanish Grand Prix, and we have Markados on pole position. A few surprises up there. Markados only managing to come in pole position, but Marlon only managing P18 on the grid, where his main rivals is near his teammate was near the top of the standings. But can Markados turn it to a win? He hasn't got a win in PSGL F1. He got second in Abu Dhabi, he told me. But can he turn it into a win here? The 5 red lights are on for the opening round of the season, and we are underway. Let's see who gets the best start of the season. Markados has got a good start. So is the Haas of Kian then, as they make their way towards turn 1. The Maya trying to go down the inside of the Haas driver as well to see if he can make it into second place. Kian is already into second place. Great start from them. Someone has had a spin. That was Tom in the background, has had a bit of a spin, so he's dropped it down into 20th position. Markados already pulling away up front. The Maya trying to go down the inside of Kian, but Max gaining the place back from Kian up into second position. So we've got Markados first, Max second, Kian third, Namaya in fourth, Asacombe in fifth, Aurelian in sixth, Kazizel trying to make his way through up into ninth place already. We've got a few people making mistakes heading towards the turn 7 and 8 complex as well. A few people going side by side there. That's a little bit of a risk to be made at the moment. A few people dropping down positions as well. But looking at the tyre choices, it's not really that surprising to see what tyres everyone has gone for, and everyone has gone for the hard compound tyres, so everybody is on the same strategy, and so far, pretty much the top 3 remain the top 3, but Max and Kian did not make it look easy.
No, they definitely didn't. It was close, but King couldn't quite get that second position made in the first couple of corners, but still, great start from the pair of them to hold their positions at the start of this race. Tom, that was an incident with Asacombe on the run in towards turn number 1. They were kind of wheel banging all the way through the braking zone, and Tom just ended up coming off worse in the entrance to turn 1 and spinning out, so that is why he's down the back of the field. I think Stefano potentially spun in sympathy at turn 2, and he's down at the back of the field. Harry's in for a change of front wing, by the way, so he's picked up some damage on that opening lap. And other than those two, only one driver has lost places at the start, and that is Rowan. Rowan is down 7 places, down to 17th. So the AlphaTauri of Rowan not having a great start. Everybody from 6th down to 16th has gained a place at the start of this race. The one that's gained the most at the moment is Volakongan, up 3 places into 11th position. So Volakongan has had the best start of everybody so far, as Jensen and Marlon going side by side for 15th at the moment down the back of the field. And Marlon's going to go round the outside of the Ferrari, get that move done. He's up now into P15. So both the Red Bulls off to a good start from their relative positions. Another one off to a good start though, Markados, look at that. He is flying out in the lead of the race. He's already trying to break that DRS train.
Yep, he is as well, and sometimes this is a track which is hard to overtake with these new era of cars. there's more action where you can go side by side, but when you're stuck in DRS train, it can make things quite difficult. There was a few people that were saying in our interviews that the DRS trains were going to be their biggest rival for this race, which is understandable, not going to lie. So Markados picking up the pace again in the 120s at the moment with his hard compound tyre pace, which is pretty good. Harry did go to the pits, by the way. He is on a set of the medium compounded tyres, but he can go on to his self hards later on because he was already on for one lap. Everybody else hasn't pitted because they haven't got damage. Even when Tom spun, he didn't get that much damage, or it wasn't enough damage to warrant a trip to the pits then for him. We're keeping an eye on the battery as well for the drivers. I mean, quite a lot of drivers are on 60% battery right now, so a lot of people are battling early doors, and it is the first round of the season, so everyone is on an even playing field. They're all starting on 0 points. No one is at the top. You've got no one to beat you. It's not like the last round of the championship where you could take risks sometimes, where some people will be playing it safe here as well. You just want to have a little bit of fun, see where you are, obviously, in the pecking order throughout this season. And there's obviously quite a few reserve drivers of, obviously, Rick, of course, who is filling in for Louis this season as a reserve. So we'll see what he could do. He's guys down in 13th at the moment. Just a reminder of the points. Top 10 score points with 16 points awarded to P1, 12 points awarded to P2, I believe. I'll need to double check the points once again, but we got Rick, who's got some brilliant straight line speed on Frankie. Looks like he could get past him into turn one, but not much space and not much room to get past him at the moment. The dirty air not helping him at all there. Max trying to make sure he can close in on Markados even more. So even though Markados is trying to make sure no one has a DRS, Max is definitely showing that he can have the pace. I am surprised that Max is up this high this early on. I was expecting the likes of Kian and the likes of Aurelian and Vola Kongan to be up there, obviously, because they were high up in F2. But an F3 drive to be battling up against the best of the best, I have to say, is pretty incredible, and it just goes to show how much people have improved on this game. You can tell Max has put in a lot of practice just to get into the top tier.
Yeah, you can definitely tell, like you say, he's definitely the surprise so far of this race, at being up there so high in his first race in the top division and doing a brilliant job. He's now just trying to sit behind the Mercedes and save a bit of DRS at this point in the race. By the way, first driver that lost DRS on that previous lap was actually Nemanja in P4. He didn't get DRS on Kian in front, but interestingly, he's got it back this time around. But interestingly, he didn't have DRS, but didn't lose anything in a straight line. So that maybe suggests that Nemanja has got a good car in a straight line in this race. So that's definitely going to be something to look out for later on in proceedings. If he does get behind another car that doesn't have DRS, he could be a rocket ship in a straight line. So that is going to be one thing to look out for. As further down, Fabi and Kazizel running side by side into turn one. Kazizel's going to run Fabi out to dry on the outside. Fabi can't get the move done, but Kazizel, again, another driver just starting to lose touch with the drivers in front. He's nearly dropped out of DRS into Deso now, so Fabi trying to get a move done before they start to lose out to the top 8 in front of them. And by the way, on that previous lap as well, Marlon's bad race so far, goes from bad to worse. He had a spin coming out of turn number 5 on the previous lap. He's dropped back behind both Ferraris, and him, Rowan and Stefano are just falling off the back of the train at the moment. They're down 17th, 18th to 19th and 4 seconds off the train. So yeah, those 3 drivers really struggling tonight.
Interesting enough that Max has been doing some team events with the likes of the F1 drivers as well. So he has had a bit of practice practicing with the F1 guys that you know and love, like Ascombe as well. So probably that is why he's already used to being up near the front. So a good point from Rudy there in the chat. Nice to see the F1 champion from last season in the chat as well. Hope you're doing well. A good and valid point there as well. Sometimes you have team events, obviously, like the E-Series, which is run on Fridays, by the way. You can check that out at 7 p.m. On the PC, commentated by Joshua Davis and Dan Field. And there was a PS event in other leagues as well, where a lot of drivers have had practice. And even just being in the pretty much same team event as people the likes of Legend and Rudy and stuff like that, they can help you so much being in the same esports team, finding some setup changes, finding out ways to improve, and sometimes you will learn the best just by racing with a faster guy as well, helping each other out. And I think that's definitely what Max is doing at the moment. Learned from the experience. Obviously they're not there now, and he's got the likes of obviously Frankie in the same lobby as well. He's obviously got Kian as well to help him, obviously both in different tiers last season, but they're in racing in the same tier. I thought they would have gone in the same team this season, but they obviously gone in for different teams. But yeah, it just goes to show how maybe team events are just as important in improving your pace, because you're working together as a team to score results, and it could help you in the long run to further develop your esports career.
Yeah, definitely you can, like you say, and obviously being in a team with so many teammates that have had success in PSGL, you can take tips and set up tips and on that. And even beyond that, it can be a morale thing, can't it? If you're in a team that you really enjoy being a part of, then that can boost your morale and make you want to play the game more and make you want to practice more. And that, of course, in the end will help your pace. If you're in a team you don't enjoy, if you're not in a team at all, then you don't really have that camaraderie with your teammates, and it makes you want to play the game less. So being in a team that you really enjoy and that you can get tips from just makes you stronger in all aspects. So that is definitely why we're seeing potentially a lot of these TF drivers have moved straight into PSF1 and immediately acclimatized to PSF1 very quickly. So doing a brilliant job. And I've got to say, at the moment, Max and Kian, second and third, obviously they've had experience, like you say, in team events running along these guys, but for a first time in PSF1, they are kind of outshining a lot of the returning drivers, aren't they? You've got Markados in the lead, of course, doing a brilliant job. Nemaya and Asacome, fourth and fifth, of course, returning drivers from last season. Nando in P7, a returning driver as well. But kind of the rest of the returning drivers, most of them are down at the back of the field at the moment. A lot of them, aren't they? Jensen, Tom and Marlon further down the field. Stefano, of course, raced last season for a bit in the second half of the season. He's currently down in 14th. Frankie's still out of the points as well in 12th. So, yeah, a lot of the returning drivers potentially at the moment in the first race of the season being a little bit dumped by some of the new faces, which is very interesting to see. It will make this season incredibly compelling to watch, definitely. And another thing that's going to be compelling to watch, by the way, as I've looked out for what's happening pace-wise, is Asacome. On the previous lap, Asacome was all over the back of Nemaya. I think Asacome is going to wait for the pit stop phase before he makes this move, but Asacome in fifth place at the moment definitely looks a lot faster than P5 at the moment, so he's going to be one to look out for.
Yeah, because he's been so used to dominating around this track, dominating the race victory last season, and he has to battle for the remaining positions. But you never know, he could challenge the likes of Kian, Max and Markados for P1. You never know, maybe his race pace may be a lot better than his quali pace, but only time will tell, as we're only on lap 8 of 33 at the moment. But yeah, it's just like obviously in real life as well. We got the change of the old guard usually. We saw like when obviously Leclerc moved to Ferrari with Sebastian Vettel as his teammate. When we started to see obviously Leclerc beating Vettel in a lot of races, I think people started to question, was Vettel really suited to Ferrari? Was Vettel washed? But Vettel was definitely not washed. It just like obviously the teams obviously were better equipped to deal with the youth that came around. Obviously Red Bull have Verstappen, Mercedes have Russell, McLaren has Norris, AlphaTauri has Tsunoda now. There's quite a few teams that have some young blood in the teams as well, and it's like this as well. PSGL has picked up the young guns to compete against the top division, and then we got some people that may not like the game as much anymore, maybe not as practice as much as the guys that have been moved up to F1. I think the main reason why the ones who moved up to F1 are doing so well is because they're motivated to do well more. They're keen to practice. They want to show what they could do and why they deserve a place in F1. For some of these drivers who have been in F1 for years, they maybe not have much to prove because they're in F1 already. Like you were saying, obviously a few drivers got into F1 this season by the skin of their teeth. We thought they were going to be knocked down into F2, but with some drivers moving over to PC, that was little bit of obviously a saving grace as well. So yeah, just a few things to pick up there as well. And of course we saw that with Norris and Ricciardo as well. Norris beating Ricciardo in a lot of races as well. Maybe this Norris was better equipped with the team, I don't know, but these tyres are going to go for a very long time. I've driven on the hards around here and they're pretty decent, so that's probably why some of them are now. I'm watching Kian's ERS, by the way. He's on 86%. Apart from Markados, Matt and Kian pretty much got all their ERS to burn if they wanted to. So if they start to get close to Markados before the pit stops, then they will be at the most advantage because they can gain a lot of speed. Let's see if Max can gain some speed here going down this start-finish straight. Not at the moment. He's just going to be patient before the pit stops.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the right call at the moment. Is that there's no point taking too many risks too early in a race. There's still a long way to go. But yeah, Max and Kian continuing to impress, like you say, P2 and P3. Actually, apart from Rowan, who's running around with 100% ERS, and I think potentially some damage on that AlphaTauri that we can't quite see because he has dropped off the pace of Stefano and Marlon incredibly quickly. So I think there's some damage on that AlphaTauri we cannot see. Other than Rowan, Max and Kian have the most ERS of any driver in the grid at the moment. They're both the highest placed drivers with some ERS in their car. The highest driver after that, I believe, is Nando, currently on 65%. So they're doing an incredible job of managing the pace and managing their ERS at the same time. So they're doing a brilliant job in P2 and P3, and they're looking pretty ominous, aren't they, for the rest of this race and potentially the rest of the season if they can keep this up. Everybody still in the train all the way down to P15 at the moment. At this point in the race last season, you would kind of see a few splits of the field, wouldn't you? Kind of around P7 and P8 there would be a split, and then maybe around P13 or somewhere there'd be another split in the field just as drivers start to separate. But at the moment the split is 16th down, and pretty much everybody from 16th down has had some sort of moment or mistake in this race. So anybody that hasn't had a mistake is still in this train, and that I think just goes to show how incredibly close this field is. And if this season has tracks that suit drivers more than others, then I think we're going to be potentially seeing this grid shuffle around a lot. It's further down the field. We've got a move going on, I believe.
Jensen's
here.
off.
Jensen's off the road. That is such a shame. That is a real shame. At the same time as well, Rick's trying to go for a move on Frankie and towards turn one. Down the inside, there's contact between the two of them. Frankie kind of half turned into the corner, didn't quite leave Rick enough space there. Rick gets the move done. Frankie forced off the road in the process. Tom is past Stefano in the background as well, trying to get down the inside of turn 3. It's all kicking off at the back of the train now. As down the inside, Tom goes on his recovery after his early spin. He's up to 14th. Stefano down to 15th position. Rick's up to 12th. Frankie down to 13th. But I think Rick may have something to say about that move from Frankie there. I think Frankie just turned into the corner a little bit too early and ended up causing himself to go off the road.
Yes, I think the stewards will be looking into that as well, because we've seen quite a few instances last season that people being pushed off the road and they were getting a time penalty because of that. There was a few that were racing incidents. Obviously, the stewards will be coming down hard on that this season. So I think, you know, you can't do that. You can't go for a move like that and expect for people to leave space at times as well. You've got to do it when it sees fit, really. And I think, obviously, Frankie losing a bit of ground, but I think Rick will definitely have something to say about that. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on those two and see if they can be a bit, obviously, cleaner for the rest of this race. We've got a change for the lead as Max retakes the lead of this Spanish Grand Prix from well, doesn't retake the lead, he gained the lead for the Spanish Grand Prix for Marcados. And look at this, Kian has got the pace all of a sudden to try and get Marcados down the inside, maybe at turn 4. He's going to have a think about it heading through 5, but Marcados seems to be struggling on his pace, on a set of the hard tyres at the moment. But Max, your F3 champion, is currently leading his very first PSF1 race. And sometimes you're probably under a lot of pressure racing the PSF1 drivers for the first time. Max is like, no, I don't care. I'm just going to race as if I've been racing with these guys for years. And he's definitely showing that at the moment. Kian almost getting past Marcados, and there's a lot of support for Max in the chat, Aiden, it looks like.
Yeah, definitely a very popular driver, isn't he? It's a good move as well. He used a bit of ERS that he'd saved up. He still has plenty in hand of ERS as well, and he's managed to get the move done. So Max into the lead, and I wonder now, with Max leading this race and looking like the faster of the drivers at the front of this field, does this now start to spread this train out a little bit? Will they start to spread out a bit more? And will we see cracks emerging in this train? Fastest lap of the race for Max as well, a 20 flat. Great lap there for Max. And here comes Kian now as well on the back of Marcados. He's using a bit of ERS, but Marcados is wise to it. But look at Marcados. He's down at, because he's been leading the entire time, he's of course had to use more ERS to try and lead this race and not get caught from the drivers behind. He's only on 20%. So if he can give himself a little bit of breathing space to Kian, Marcados now has to do exactly what Max and Kian did in the opening part of this race and just save ERS, hasn't he? Otherwise, he's just going to be a sitting duck later on in this race. He's got to try and sit behind them and save some ERS and try and get back at them later on if he stands any chance for trying to win this race. I think Marcados will be gutted if he gets another pole and doesn't get the win in the same event. That would be definitely gutting for Marcados, but yeah, Max, great move into the lead. Kian's looking strong as well. And the top 3 are just starting to edge away ever so slightly from the Maya, who's just struggling to keep pace with the top 3 ever so slightly. So that's definitely potentially where we could see the first break. The Maya in P4 just kind of struggling a little bit to keep up.
I have to say, I'm looking at the midfield drivers at the moment. Deso doing a great job in 8th place. Obviously, we're talking about Nando Aurelian doing very well in his first race in at the top division. Volakongan just missing out on points. His main goal was to get into the top 10, so if he overtakes Fabi, then he would meet his goal for the start of season 33. He wants to try and get points in every single race so far. Everyone on the hards. I believe Harry did go on to his South hards that he was in earlier on as well. So he was on the means for a little bit and then he went on to the hards. So that was probably why no one is on the mediums now. So we can go on to mediums later on. Everyone should have 2 sets of mediums left to their disposal anyway. So obviously if they have an incident, then that could be something that they obviously want to consider as well. I think this is going to get very, very spicy when it comes to the pit stop. If I was Markados, what would you do? Would you pit now and go for the undercut, or would you risk it and go long? And because sometimes the overcut works a little bit better, but sometimes the tyre warm-up could be very, very difficult on this game. So a lot of things for drivers to think about, because pit stops are not as easier to think about on this game because obviously the tyre warm-up. But we will see as we head to the pit stop window in just under a few races time. Well, a few moments time, not a few races time, but there we go. But we're about to start lap 15. Is anyone going to think about going into the pits very soon? Not yet. We're going to have to wait just a little bit for that, but we'll see if anyone is making some moves in the background. Doesn't look like it, doesn't it? Only one not in that DRS train. Here's the likes of Jensen and Rowan. We've got 2 drivers in the pits already. They've got nothing to lose. We've got Frankie and FER Steph in. So we've got Frankie in the Alpha, FER Steph in the McLaren. Then they're going to be going to 7 mediums. That is earlier than I was expecting, but they've got the most to gain from this situation, because they can see what the other drivers can do. Maybe Frankie can be a little bit of a guinea pig for his teammate Max.
Yeah, he definitely can, can't he? He was out of the points anyway. He may as well just try and take a risk and see if it pays off. I think this is probably one of the tracks this season where tyre warm-up isn't actually going to be too much of a problem, because the opening part of this track is so hard on tyres that actually your tyres warm up pretty quickly around here. So that's not going to be too much of a problem. The problem for these guys is going to be that the pace in these mediums is going to fall off for them in the last 5 laps of this race compared to everybody else by quite a bit, and they will struggle at the end of this race on warm tyres. I think tyre pace fall off on the mediums is definitely more of a problem than the heating of them themselves. So yeah, Frankie may be a bit of a test dummy for his teammate now being out of the points, and of course he could, of course, get a little bit of track position as well. And if there's any sort of incident or carnage around the pit stop phase, then Frankie can still benefit from that with the track position he could gain with this early pit stop. So it was worth it being outside of the pit lane. I think I wasn't kind of expecting a pit stop yet. I think I was kind of conditioned into thinking Louis was here, because Louis is always the one that comes in early, isn't he?
Yeah.
But he's not here tonight, so we couldn't really base him off being the one to pit stop early. As this time around, Kazizom and Volakongan are into the pit lane from 10th and 11th, so they followed each other in. And just to answer your question from earlier on about Markados, it's hard to say really, isn't it? Because I don't think it's worth going early if you're at the front of the field, because you're just going to be a sitting duck later on in the race to somebody on fresher tyres who's managed to stay out 3 or 4 laps longer potentially. I think if you're Markados, your best bet is probably to follow Max into the pit lane and just try and stick behind him, because if you go a lap longer, Max could undercut you to a point that you have too big of a gap that you can't catch up later on in the race. And if you go too early and then Max goes a little bit longer and has better tyres, you could just breeze past you in the second half of the race. So I think if you're Markados, the best bet here, I think, is just to follow Max in and follow his strategy. But I think Markados at the moment seems to be more worried about Keane behind than Max in front, because Keane is all over the back of that for that Mercedes.
I think Kian is just saving a little bit of his tyre ready for these next couple of laps then, so maybe he would want to go long as well. We got Volakongan and Frankie in the background going side by side through turn 9 then. That is an unconventional place to go for the move then. But we've got Volakongan with the DRS then. Is he going to go for a lunge down the inside to turn 10? The answer to that is no. We've got a few people in the pits. Asako, Nando, Fabi and Rick then onto a set of the medium compounded tyres. So we're starting it to get the pit stops underway for our midfield runners, and maybe soon for our front runners as well. We've got a bit of traffic in the final sector as well, so we've got a big queue of cars going in into the pit lane in terms of the midfield drivers, as Frankie sent the fastest lap so far. So definitely heating there with those tyres, but Asicone being the one that comes out on top out of all the medium runners, with Nando not that far behind, so the two outplayed the guys, doing a stellar job with their pit stops. Cazzizzle not doing too bad either. We've got Volakonga and Rick going side by side. Volakonga around the outside of it, he gets past him, down up to 15 on the road then, with Rick in 16th position, but Volakonga has obviously the warmest tyres after being on for a lap longer. Here comes Cazzizzle and Nando. We've got lots of cars going side by side. We've got the likes of Nando and Fabi. We've got Frankie and the likes of Fabi as well, pushing themselves almost off the circuit there. Keep it clean, boys. Let's watch Frankie as we head down this back straight. Is any of the front runners going to go into the pits? The answer to that is yes. Markados is in, Aurelian is in, and Adesso is in the box. Whereas Max and Kian, the two talent factory guys, they've decided to stay out. What could this mean for those two? Markados has had to have a brilliant outlap of his life to make sure he can stay ahead of those two drivers.
Yeah, it really is. And I think the one person here we've also got to watch out for is Asicone, pitted from P5. He's comfortably ahead of the rest of the medium runners. He has got plenty of free air. He is going to be someone to look out for here. He's actually going to be quite close to Markados here coming out the pit lane. He's already passed Aurelian before they get to turn 1. Markados is in turn 1, but of course he's got to warm his tyres up here. Asicone has thrown himself here into really good contention if he can get to the back of this Mercedes and potentially past him before Markados' tyres are properly warmed up. There's only 5 tenths between them, but that was the gap between Kian and Markados, and of course we know that the undercut around Spain is pretty powerful. So I think Asicone here has potentially thrown himself into a really good podium threat here as they're side by side further down. Nando and Dessa going side by side. Nando just manages to get ahead of the Haas out of the pit lane, so Nando is through and into the points once again in 10th. Dessa drops down behind. Cazzizzle, though, another one that benefited. He was P10 before that pit stop phase. I think he's now in a net P7, potentially higher than that, when the likes of Namaya and Tom pit. So Cazzizzle there, bit of an earlier pit stop, but so far for the McLaren driver, it's worked out pretty well. As into the pit lane come our two leaders and Namaya as well. Does Tom come into the pit lane? Yes, he does. Tom's in as well, and you would imagine Stefano's probably going to come in as well in the Aston Martin. So everybody in now pretty much for their pit stops in this race. Now, where are Markados and Asicone in relation to the two Talent Factory drivers? I do worry here that Max and Kian here could be passed by the pair of them.
I think they can as well, so I think Markados Asicone have played this perfectly, but obviously we'll have to wait and see. So it may have strongly suggested the undercut may have worked, but very close going towards turn 1. It's closer than we thought. Matt and Kian get the race lead, and the overcut has worked, but don't forget they'll be on much cooler tyres. Markados might have the advantage here going through turn 3. The straight line speed he's got is amazing. He may go side by side heading towards turn 4. He's going to think go around the outside potentially as well, heading through 5. More to the make contact. Two of them make contact. That is a shame. A very risky move to be made. Asicone was like, thank you very much. You made that mistake. I'll go into P2. But yeah, that doesn't seem to affect him Max too much because he was able to be ahead of his rivals, and he still comes across the line to be your race leader at the moment. But I'm almost certain that incident between Markados and King will be investigated by the stewards. What a shame for King. He was running so well, but he got caught up in an instant, sadly. But still a long way to go. Could be safety cars. I don't think he's got damage. Has he got damage? Doesn't look like it. So, yeah. That is a shame. I think only driver to not pit is Jensen and Harry, and they'll need to go on to a set of memes because there's no way those cars could get to the end of the race. But yeah, Max still leads. Asicone in second. Could Asicone get another win in Spain just like he did about 3 months ago last season?
It's on the cards now, but I think that incident there between Markados and Kian potentially, I think, has just sealed the deal for Max. Max is now 2.2 seconds up the road on fresher tyres than everybody behind him apart from Namaya. So Max here is in a perfect position to just dominate the last part of this race and cleanly win this one from the front. So that's kind of played beautifully into Max's hands. That is a real shame for Kian as well, that incident. It's hard to place blame on that one. They were racing very hard. Kian, of course, tyres weren't fully up to temperature yet. He was kind of squeezing Markados all the way to the grass on the outside. I think, if anything, Kian kind of needed to let that one go. If anything, Markados was on the hotter tyres. He was on the outside line. He had the momentum, and he just kind of put Markados on the grass, and that kind of spun the Mercedes around. So I think if you're going to place blame on anyone there, I think it's probably more 60% on Kian's side of things. But, of course, that's up to the stewards to decide after this one if that is investigated. Markados, though, is quite lucky to still get away with P3 after that one. I was amazed, actually, that he was still in P3. I was sure that it was facing the other way, but actually he managed to save it and is still in a podium position as it stands. hands. So Marcados's race isn't quite over just yet, even with that big scare. By the way, we missed it, but at the very same time that incident was happening, Volokongan in the Red Bull was having his own spin. He was up into, I believe, P10, but unfortunately he spun, so he's now back down to P16. So Volokongan's chance of points in this first race like he wanted, I think, are pretty much out the window, barring any sort of chaos. And just to show what a devastating spin that was for Kian, he's just gone and set the fastest lap of the race.
So imagine he probably would have challenged Max for the victory if he didn't have that moment with Marcados. But sometimes the pressure just gets to you. You haven't been racing that much with the top guys, maybe potentially in PSGL. There's a lot of people watching you as well, expecting you to do well, and maybe the lack of experience maybe is showing at the moment. And obviously with the more experience they get with these type of races at PSGL, with the league races, then obviously it will be a lot better for King. We know his pace, we've seen it in F2, his pace be absolutely incredible. I was the one who predicted that King will be in F1 this season, and I was definitely right on that one, but let's hope that he could still potentially get some points. He's still technically within that DRS trainer between 4th and 14th place. So it's not over for King at the moment. And we can see Mac already pulling that gap already and is looking very racy on the back of Marcados at the moment. Same with Namaya as well. So the race is a bit wide open for the last spot on the podium, which is great to see as well, as we can see Asacone pulling away from Marcados. So it looks like Marcados is struggling a little bit there in that Mercedes. Aurelian doing a lot better in that Alpine, but not being able to take advantage. Obviously Aurelian got more ERS compared to Marcados. You can see he's harvesting a little bit as well. Marlon is starting to produce some quicker lap times. Imagine where he would have been if he would have had a better qualifying. He makes it down the inside of Jensen heading towards turn 1, and he made the move stick, and he's up to 15th position. And obviously Jeds are being on older tyres. Jeds will probably save it to potentially go onto a set of the soft tyres, or maybe he wants to save it and put onto a fresh set of medium. So let's look at positions gained. Now most people have made their pit stop. Stefano's gained the most, as well as because there's also both McLaren making biggest gains. Ascombe is up 3, as well as Fabi and Frankie. So those 3 drivers, and as well as the ones who gained 4 places, doing incredibly well. Obviously Marlon up 4, and Howie even has gained 1, but biggest loser has got to be Keane down 11. But again, we will obviously have to look at it with the stewards. Now, Rudy's prediction that the gap between Max and P2 will be 5 seconds at come the end of this race. We will see if Rudy's prediction comes true.
Yeah, we'll definitely see if it does come true. I think so far Asacome's actually done a pretty solid job at managing the gap, considering his tyres are 2 laps older. So Asacome's not doing too bad a job at the moment in the AlphaTauri. And considering he's on older tyres, he is dropping Marcados quite quickly now, actually, for that second place. So Asacome is kind of settling into an easy P2 as it stands right now, which is a good start to his season, of course. Of course, like we mentioned earlier on, he won this race last season, and then immediately after that, his season pretty much fell apart straight away after that win in the first round of the season. So Asacome here trying to start off good again and see if we can maintain it for the full season. But yeah, from now, it just seems to be, it's just a battle for third now, really, isn't it? I don't know. We don't know if Marcados has picked up maybe any sort of damage from that incident. I will be amazed if he got away with that without some sort of damage somewhere on that car, because that was a pretty hefty side-to-side contact he made with the Haas there at least a couple of times in that moment. So there's potentially a little bit of damage on that car. If not, he may have just overheated his tyres, and of course around a track like Spain, once they're overheating, it's pretty difficult to bring them back down again, because you don't really get a break in the corners apart from the pit straight. So Marcados potentially now just struggling on those medium tyres, and that's one thing Marcados potentially is going to have to iron out for the rest of the season. His quali pace, we know, is really strong. He showed it in the second half of last season, but the quali pace at the moment for Marcados is not quite translating into race pace, is it? He doesn't quite have the same pace in the race that he does in qualifying, so that's going to have to be something he'll iron out for the latter stages of this season if he wants to really fight for this championship. But at the moment in P3, he's okay at the moment in P3. Aurelian at the moment P4 doesn't look really anywhere near fast enough in a straight line to have a go at the Mercedes yet. So either he's waiting or he's just not got enough straight line speed to really challenge for that third place, but we will wait and see. Final spot on the points, by the way, is held by Frankie, but Frankie is losing touch with his train now, when Tom, who's on 4-lap fresher tyres, after his spin on lap 1, looks like he's about to recover to get back into the points. So that's a good recovery so far from Tom.
That is a good recovery from Tom, and he didn't have a good qualifying session either. So to be honest, he's definitely having a good comeback drive and deserving of a space in the F1 Tier 1s again, and he's definitely showing that in Spain. And I was starting to wonder why Tom was struggling a bit last season to get up near the top with the likes of obviously Rudy Legend and Rowan last season. But to be honest, it was been a learning season for him last season. He thought he was going to be up there challenging, but maybe it could be just to have a little bit of fun, maybe to try a bit of practice before he races in challenges, because he is racing in challenges this season. So all in all, good experience for Tom. But yeah, he'll definitely want some points to start his season on a high. Sometimes you would want different expectations if you feel like you're not going to get up there near the front straight away. That's what I do sometimes in leagues when I know that I could get up there quickly, but I just can't due to my lack of pace. So you maybe have to set your expectations a little bit lower, and sometimes you may perform a little bit better with low pressure. But for some people, like Max, likes the pressure, and he definitely came into this race, I think, with the most confidence out of everybody, and I was a bit shocked to see that. But to be honest, he definitely proved me wrong, having this amazing confidence that he's showing here today as well. But Deso, I have to say, he's usually the one who's made the most mistakes in previous races, but he's definitely not showing it at the moment. Deso is in 8th position right now, still in that DRS train for the likes of 4th plate as well. Definitely showing that he deserves a full-time driver, because he was a reserve driver for the last few races of the season. He of course has better internet now, so it's great to see he has better internet. But I'm liking the new Deso at the moment. I hate him at the back, I like him in the midfield, and yeah, it's good to see him improving. Obviously he's not near the front yet, but it will take time for Deso, and it's great to see that he could challenge the lights because it's a Nando. So great to see Deso fighting for the big points.
Yeah, it is great to see, like you say, he was, of course, reserved for a lot of last season for F1, and when he did race, he showed flashes of pace, but never quite consistent enough across a race distance to really challenge for decent points, was it? But he's doing a good job today. Only problem now is he's quite low on ERS, and he's got Fabio right behind him, who's got a bit more in hand, so there'll be a bit of pressure there. Frankie really dropping off now as well. Tom is right on the back of the Alfa Romeo, trying to find a way through, see if he can get into that points position before he's then attacked by his Shizou teammate Rick behind. So Tom trying to get into that 10th place. By the way, if Tom does get into 10th place, that means that there's only one team that has both cars inside the top 10, and that would be Mercedes as it stands. We've got 8 manufacturers in the top 10 at the moment. It could be 9 if Frankie drops out of the top 10 and Tom gets in. So that shows that not only is the drivers going to be interesting, that the manufacturers could also be very interesting as well, because we've not got a dominant manufacturer in this race so far. So that's going to be another thing to keep an eye out for the rest of this race. Max still leading then, 2.6 seconds. It's kind of leveled out really at about 2.5 seconds, hasn't it, between Max and Asako. Asako on the older tyres just doesn't have the grip to close in, but he isn't falling away. Markados, though, there's something about these medium tyres, so Markados are just not coming together, are they? He's really dropping off the pack of this top 2, and it's really starting to separate. Very different to the first half of the race, where everybody seemed to be keeping up with one another, and now all of a sudden the top 3 are completely spread apart. But still, Aurelian doesn't seem to be able to get close enough in a straight line to really have a go at Markados for that 3rd place. So Aurelian's going to have to save up a bit more ERS and burn a lot of it when he does get the opportunity.
To be fair though, Aurelian will probably be happy with his performance in P4, but surely he would want to aim a little bit higher, knowing that there's 3rd place breathing down their necks at the moment. Obviously they can't reach the likes of P2 and P1 at the moment, but surely a podium will be amazing for his F1 debut, performing very, very well in F2 last season, consistently near the front of the order in most of the races we saw in season 32 for him. So yeah, definitely finding his form in F1 already, which is great to see, of course. And Amaya having a good race thus far as well in 5th position. I'm sure he'll be very happy with that. He's kept it very clean for most of this race, which is sometimes unheard of. So he wants to get off his season to a great start, which he definitely is at the moment. And maybe he can take advantage of already and not trying to get past potentially very, very soon. But we are already approaching towards the end of this race. We've seen no safety cars so far. Touch wood, but you never know, we could see things change at a drop of the hat. Pretty much the top 2 are running away with it, but we've got a massive fight for the midfield. Out of the midfield run, as Hoodiebeat's going to go on the podium, yellow flag. I might have spoken too soon. We've got Harry, who's had a bit of a spin. Unfortunately, he's going to be maybe a lap down soon if he's not too careful. Very much struggling in the Williams car, unfortunately. I think him being in this top tier is harder than expected, but still got plenty of races to improve on that. Jensen finally comes in after being on those tyres for majority of this race. I thought he was going to save him and go on to some soft tyres. He is. I don't know why he wanted to do that, but there he goes. Volakonga and Stefano going for a move side by side. We're used to them fighting for positions in F2. They're fighting for positions in F1 as Stefano keeps position.
Yeah, and we've... Oh, I think, have we got a virtual safety car? Or is that just a full yellow flag? I can't actually tell what that is, but it's a virtual, I think. I think that looks like a virtual safety car. It is. I think that's because Harry has just picked up a puncture and has spun coming out of turn 9, so he's pitted for those. Obviously, he pitted for the mediums at the start, pitted back onto the hards, and has just taken the hards far too long in the race and has picked up some damage. Yeah, front left puncture on that one, completely gone. So I think where he's hit the wall potentially and picked up some damage, that's just brought out the virtual safety car. I think Max maybe saw that yellow flag come out and panicked, but actually he can breathe a sigh of relief because it's only a virtual. It's not going to close the pack up, and if it was going to become a full safety car, it would have said so by now. So I think Max can breathe a sigh of relief that that's only a virtual safety car. He's just got to make sure he doesn't speed now, and that will be him safe. Harry's into the pit lane, of course. I think would not be surprised if Harry retires. There's not really much anything he can do now. Even if a safety car does come out, he'll be a lap down. Yeah, he's a lap down, and there'll be no lap. There's no unlapping rules in this game, so that's not possible. So, yeah, I think Harry potentially here might be retiring in the pit lane. We'll wait and see, or he might try and go for fastest lap and make sure that nobody else can take it. We'll wait and see. But either way, it's not been a great race for Harry. It's not been a great race for Jensen either. They've both had really, really terrible days so far, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, just got to wait for the VSC to get going again, and we've got just under 5 laps to go in this race, and it's been a brilliant drivers.
Frankie!
Oh, Frankie! Frankie drive-through penalty, clinging on to that last points position, trying to get a double points finish for Alfa Romeo, and it's fallen away. Frankie with a drive-through penalty for speeding. That is him out of the equation completely.
And that means Tom could be on course for points. Maybe Rick could be on course for points in his F1 debut as well. So it's a battle between Ferrari and Alpine to see if they're going to get 2 manufacturers in the top 10 or 9 manufacturers in the top 10. We'll have to wait and see, of course. And yeah, so easy to get drive-through penalties around here as we can already see the Alfa Romeo and the Ferrari fighting for 9th place on the grid. So we'll see what they can do then. The sister team fighting with the works team of Ferrari. Tom managing to keep that position at the moment. Oh, that's tight. That's tight for Frankie. I think Frankie's cut. I don't think you're allowed to cut the pit lane like that. I think the stewards will have something to say for that. And it wasn't for 9th place. So obviously he had a drive-through to serve. So yeah, he's already dropping down to 14th position, which is obviously a bit of a shame. But that VSC, by the way, has brought Asicombe very, very close to Max. So maybe the race victory is not over yet. Maybe we could see a change in race victory. We'll have to wait and see. Aurelian's got closer to Marcos as well. A lot of people were very, very close together as well, and that was all because of that VSC, which spiced things up a bit due to obviously Harry's punch. By the way, fair play to Harry for keeping going. If I was him, I would have retired the car by now, but he's a lap down, still on the track, could get fastest lap. All in all, it's valuable experience which you can take in for future races, and the more that you're on the track, the more it can help you as well for PSF1. So obviously fair play to Harry for keeping going, and yeah, he probably done a better job than me as Jensen picked up a 3-second time penalty. I believe that was the first track limit warning that we received, unless Frankie got one earlier. I think, oh no, Frankie got a 5-second one for corner cutting, but Jensen has got one for track limit in general. So there we go. But Max comes across the line to start lap 31. He's ran out of ERS completely. So has Ascombe as well. Marcos has got plenty, but he's way behind on the top 2. Is Aurelian saving his ERS ready for that final moment, I wonder?
I think he is saving his ERS. The problem for Aurelian is that virtual safety car we just had gave Marcos an opportunity to resave some ERS. So actually at the moment, Marcos has more ERS than Aurelian behind. So Aurelian's going to have to get an amazing run out of the final corner in one of these next 2 laps to really stand a chance. Otherwise, Marcos has enough ERS in the tank to be able to keep that Alpine behind. So it's going to have to be a good run from the Alpines if he wants to try and take this 3rd place away. But at the moment, Marcos looks fairly comfortable in 3rd position. Asicombe got within 1.2 seconds, by the way, of Max in the lead. The only problem for Asicombe is that he had 30% less ERS when the virtual safety car ended. So if they were on a level amount of ERS, Asicombe potentially could have got into DRS range of Max, but he just wasn't quite close enough. And whatever Asicombe did at that virtual safety car restart, he timed it to perfection to get that much of a gain and not get a penalty. So that was definitely a smart move there for Facecam, and probably his last opportunity at seeing if he could try to win this race. But yeah, it's all about the fight for third now. Can Aurelian get a run out of the chicane this time around? Can he get close enough? He's on the ERS coming out the corner. It's a 4/10 gap, which is closer than it's been for the majority of these laps. But again, Markados just weaving a little bit down the straights to try and break the toe. He's using a little bit of his ERS reserve, and he seems fine. So now Aurelian really only has one opportunity down the pit straight on the final lap to steal this third place. Otherwise, Markados should have it in hand.
Yeah, he should definitely have it in hand for third place. Shame it was not the race victory that he was aiming for, of course, but sometimes there are still times to wait, and you never know. I think if he doesn't get the race win this season, then I'll be very, very shocked, because he definitely has the pace to get race wins this season. We saw that in Abu Dhabi when he was fighting for the race victory, and it was very, very great to see as well. And we already passed the point where we're not going to get any safety cars. We've seen it one for VSC, but no safety cars, and I have to say that's a relief, I think, for all drivers involved. Jensen is in, I think, to try and seal the fastest lap. You only get the fastest lap point, by the way, if you're inside the top 10. So Jensen, I'm afraid, won't be getting points if he does get the fastest lap. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. And we are about to start the final lap of this Spanish Grand Prix, and I have to say it's been a very good one for Max so far, but Facecam has closed the gap even more, and all it takes is one small mistake from any one of those drivers for it to open up massively. But we'll have to wait and see, of course, as Markados trying to break free of the slipstream of Aurelian. Aurelian's got some ERS then. Is he going to get past Markados to take third place in the Spanish Grand Prix? The answer to that is no. Yellow flag. That is, I think, Frankie has had a bit of an off in sector 3, which is not good. If he was breached there a few laps ago, that would have definitely caused a safety car, but at least he's back on the road for the final part of the lap. Luckily, he's not a lap down, I don't think, so he's obviously able to keep going. His DRS train is still obviously growing and growing as well, so anything can happen. The next opportunity to overtake will be around about turn 9 area as well, turn 9, turn 10, where we can see the best moves, and I absolutely love moves being made there as well, as we can see Nemaya actually closing in on Aurelian then. So who's going to make the move first? Who is going to blink? Doesn't look like anyone's going to blink. I think people would prefer to stay exactly as they are, so I think the order is going to stay as it is. But there's one driver that's performed really, really well on debut. He was the F3 champion from last season. We had doubts on when he was going to deliver in the top tier right on cue, but he proved the doubters wrong. He wins in his debut in PSF1 and takes the championship lead in the top tier on PlayStation. Fantastic. Facecam P2, Markados third, Aurelian with a superb debut in F1 in fourth. You'll be happy with that. Nemaya in fifth, Nando in sixth, Khalil seventh, Deso with a strong performance in eighth, Fabi in ninth, and Tom rounds up the top 10. And I'm just trying to see. I do believe we have, obviously, do we have all manufacturers in the top 10? I can't remember.
Almost. The only manufacturer not in the top 10 is Red Bull. We have nine manufacturers in the top 10. Mercedes are the only team to get both cars inside the top 10 there. So, yeah, really mixed grid, wasn't it? That was a fantastic race from start to finish. Really mixed up grid. Qualifying result didn't translate into race result. It really mixed about throughout the league. So, yeah, that was a really, really interesting race, and that bodes for a really, really good season as well. And what a debut performance for Max that was. I mean, we've seen it before that people can move up from F3 to F1 and be very strong, but to dominate the second half of that race in your first race in PSGL F1, that is an amazing performance to start off the season for Max. Even if we had high expectations of him, I think that's exceeded any high expectations we had.
Yeah, definitely. I was expecting him just to get like a top 5 finish potentially, or maybe even top 10, get into the points, but he definitely proved all the doubters wrong and could be a title favourite. But we saw like last season that maybe getting the win in the first race doesn't translate into race victories, and maybe that is not disappointing for Facecam in that sense, because that means he could fight for the title this season if he doesn't win the first race. So yeah, he's probably not that disappointed that he's not win in Brazil, of course. So I'm trying to remember who won the first the Spanish Grand Prix. There was no Spanish Grand Prix last season, but on debut in the F3 promotion from Reading Season 31, his first race, he got 5 points. So already Max has done better than previous F3 champions before they've been promoted to F1. So, yeah, definitely set a benchmark for those who've come before him. So, there we go. So, we'll run through your order then. Max, from second on the grid, went on to win the race. By far, 3 times faster than anybody as well. Asuka in second, Marcados in third, Aurelian in fourth, Namaya, Nando, Cazidal, Dezo, Fabi and Tom are your top 10. Rick with a strong performance in 11th. Then we got Steph, not so good in 12th, but I'm sure you can pick it up. Kian with that accident with Marcados. Surely he can have a better race next week. Same with Marlon and Volakongan. And we got Stefano, Frankie, Jensen and Harry are your finishers. Only one retirement, Aiden, and that was Rowan.
Yeah, and that was for some damage, of course, that he picked up an incident on lap 1. I think it was damage that was irreparable for Rowan as well, so it was kind of a bed that he unfortunately had to line for that race, which is a bit of a shame. But other than a bit of contact on lap 1 and that incident with Kian and Marcados, it was a fairly clean race all the way around, which was great to see as well. And in fact, only 2 drivers in that entire field finished where they started, and they were Jensen in 18th and Stefano in 16th. Everybody else managed to finish in a different position to where they started, so there was a lot of movement on a track that traditionally you don't see a lot of overtaking on, so that bodes well for the rest of the season, that qualifying doesn't mean everything. I think we saw it a lot last season where qualifying kind of, if you qualified on the front 2 rows, that was kind of it. If you qualified any lower than that, you really had no chance really compared to the top 3. But this time around there was a lot of movement throughout the field, so yeah, bodes well for a lot of tracks coming up, especially tracks that are a lot easier to overtake.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously the calendar, obviously quite different to what we've seen in the past couple of seasons. Obviously we're going to Baku for the first time in a while, which is interesting. A lot of people obviously were saying in the chat that they don't like Baku. So I think I'm looking forward to Baku when that comes around. But hopefully we'll get some of our drivers in for interviews. We would like to hear from our race winner as well to see his preparations for tonight as well, and I'm just going to try and find his interview notes again, because I think it was the first time in a while where I've seen his expectations translate to result. He said he wants to fight for the title, and he gets a win in his first race. That is confidence right there.
Yeah, that is confidence, isn't it? There's a lot of times that you can see people come in with a lot of confidence, maybe a bit too much confidence, and then end up not meeting their expectations, getting down on themselves, and it just ends up in a spiral. But Max obviously has come into the season with a lot of confidence and immediately delivered on it first race. So I think even if he doesn't properly fight for the title, or maybe loses out a little bit later on in the season to some of the more experienced PSF1 drivers, that is still such a statement he has made for future championships beyond this season, even if he doesn't win this season as well. So yeah, Max has really made a statement here for that one. That was a really, really strong performance from Max for the first round of the season. And a lot of other debutants as well had really good races as well. Of course, Kian didn't get the result, but was strong all race long. And you've got to say, without the incident, that was an easy podium for Kian in that race. So he's going to be another one to look out for. Aurelian as well was maybe a little bit under the radar for the majority of that race, but P4 in his first race is a really good result as well. So yeah, a lot of drivers with strong results today. A lot of drivers as well. A lot of established names in PSF1 with a lot of work to do, especially. You've got to say Marlon. You've got to say probably the biggest disappointment, you would say, of today's race. He came into you've got to say he probably came into the season as one of the favourites. He's been so strong last season in terms of pace. Comes into today's race and is invisible for the majority of it, which is a bit of a shame. So a few drivers with a bit of work to do.
Yeah, and we always tend to predict certain drivers that would do well, and sometimes they fall by the wayside and finish low points. So Marlon, let's hope he does well next time out to prove my theory wrong. So we are gonna wait for a few drivers to come in. We've got our third place man that is about to come with us into the box, so we may as well have a word with him. I think we're going to hear from Max as well in just a few moments time, but first of all we may as well drag Marcados into the box. Marcados, can you hear us? Marcados, can you hear us? Doesn't look like he can hear us, unfortunately, unless he's having problems. Maybe he's on his phone or something. But we would go into the rating room like we've done in previous seasons, but we've got another tier that's streamed via the Elgato this season, so we can't do that at the moment. So let's try and get our race winner in to see if he can have a chance to speak to us. Max, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Hey, there we go. It worked for someone. Max, so big congratulations on a debut. You won in F3 last season, and you won on debut in the top tier on PlayStation. You had that confidence, and you delivered just like you were showing in the interviews.
Yeah, it was a pretty good race and had much confidence.
Yeah, because obviously you had some very strong showings in F3 last season. You obviously had experience with your main esports team in Teams event as well. Do you think that helped you going into this one, knowing that you raced against some of the F1 guys before in other events?
Yeah, definitely it gave me some confidence and also won against Elgato again, and yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me that you're probably going to have a nice rivalry between Asacombe this season. So I'm very excited to see that as well. Obviously, going into this season, I'm actually going to try and find your interview questions in just a moment as well. But going into the race, you saw obviously Kian struggle a little bit when he was having that incident with Markados. Did that breathe you a sigh of relief knowing that the race was going to be easy, or were you trying to not become complacent?
No, I didn't even notice that Kian was gone. I was just focusing on driving.
Very, very good. I think if you just focused on just the track in front of you, then that does very help you. Now, obviously, I was speaking to a few of the drivers before going into this. Quite a few people from the tiers below saying that you are their rival for this season. I think Kian being one of them, which is unsurprising because obviously you're in the same esports team. I thought I could try and find your questions, but I can't seem to find your questions. I might have not forgot to bob. There we go. So obviously we had 4 wins in a row last season. You're so confident about going for the championship that your favourite track is Portugal. Why do you think your favourite track's Portugal? Do you think?
I don't know. I had just 3 league races in 3 weeks, and I just practiced straight for that in 3 weeks, and yeah, found really good pace. Yeah.
Yeah, and your expectation for tonight, you were like, not my best track, hoping for top 5. Well, you definitely got better than the top 5 already, so big congratulations. Obviously, I was about to ask the next question, but I know Aiden's going to answer it, so I won't spoil Aiden's thunder. So Aiden, over to you. What was your question for our race winner?
Congratulations, Max, on your first win in your first race in PSF1. A couple of questions for me, actually. So, first question for myself. Obviously, we've mentioned Asacombe as potentially a rival going forwards. Kian, of course, has mentioned as well, of course, being a TFT mate of yours, being a rival. Is there anyone else in the championship you're looking at as potentially being a threat for the title this season?
Yeah, definitely Markados, maybe. He showed some great pace again today. And yeah, everyone can win the championship here. Everyone has great pace.
Yeah, it's incredibly close this season. Like you say, it could be very close. There could be a lot of challenges. And the question that Jess was saving for me next round is Singapore. Next time out, how are you feeling about Singapore? Is it a track you enjoy, or is it a track that you're not too familiar with?
I haven't really done it on this game, but last game it was a really good track for me. So yeah, looking forward for it.
Well, that's definitely ominous, isn't it? You said tonight wasn't a great track for you, and you dominated the race, so that's a bit ominous if you enjoyed Singapore. But yeah, congratulations for tonight. Absolutely brilliant result to start off the season.
Thank you.
There we go. So hearing from our race winner then, Max, and it was great to hear him, obviously, for the first time. Obviously, he was downplaying a bit of expectations for the race. He was a bit confident going into the championship, at least, and sometimes that's all you got to do in a way, in terms of obviously downplaying your expectations. I am expecting Max to obviously win the race next week, joking. But I'm expecting a lot more people to, I think, challenge for Singapore. The grid is so close. Obviously, you've got the likes of Marlon, who struggled this week as well, and maybe Tom could get up there as well. Asacombe, I think I've seen perform well in Singapore in the past. There's so many other drivers that could do well that we just haven't seen get the win today. And we obviously seen the debutants as well. I'm very much looking forward to next week's race. And it's one of the longest tracks on the calendar as well. A test of endurance more than anything, and a test of skill.
Yeah, definitely a test of skill and endurance. Like I say, a test of endurance for our voices as well to see how interesting that race is going to be with how long it is. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? It's Singapore is very different to Spain. It's two very different tracks to start off the season. It's obviously a street circuit, one of the only street circuits on the calendar we've got this season. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how these drivers cope with it. We saw the field tonight is, especially in qualifying, was very close, and qualifying around Singapore is kind of everything, really, isn't it? You need the track position at Singapore, so we could see a completely different grid and a completely different winner next time out. We shall wait and see. But yeah, Max came into it with a lot of confidence in himself, didn't maybe show everybody else's confidence, downplayed it a little bit, and ended up throwing a spanner in the works in the first round of the championship. So yeah, Max is going to be really interesting going forwards. But like he said as well, there's a lot of people in this championship that could have good seasons. Asakome's off to a good start, so is Markados as well. So, and they'll be wanting to bounce back from fairly low seasons by their standards last season. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of things to look forward to coming up in this championship, and Singapore is going to be, I think, a very interesting race.
Very exciting indeed. But don't forget, some of these drivers are also focusing on practicing for challenges as well. So they're balancing, obviously, PSGL plus challenges, where certain drivers are not competing in challenges. Maybe they could take advantage and maybe beat the old guard. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. All in all, if they're not old enough for challenges yet, this is good experience in the top tier, ready for obviously future challenger seasons coming up. So the top tier is a place to be in PSGL. Obviously, if you want to see some more PSGL action, we've got Wednesday, the top tier. They'll be racing, well, they were going to be racing around Singapore, but I believe they're racing around Spa. I think it's a change of the calendar. So looking forward to seeing how that goes with George Morgan and Jack Canaan take you through the action. Then we start the Singapore action with the lower PC tiers from F2 to F6 being streamed. And then we got myself and Aiden take you through the action on Monday. Before we go, any final words?
Not much to say, really. Really interesting first round of the season. I think it's shown a different pecking order than we were maybe expecting. So, yeah, season 33 is going to be really, really exciting.
Yes, thank you guys so much for watching. Check out our sponsor as well, GT Omega. 5% off GT Omega products by using the code PSGL in description. Also, make sure you check out Grid Arrival, who is back as our sponsor this season, to check out the F1 2023 Fantasy League. Also, check out SimStaff newsletter. And yeah, that's it for the sponsors. We'll leave you with our title sponsor to round off the stream. Have a good evening. We'll see you in 7 days' time for the Singapore Grand Prix. Until then, bye-bye.
This broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega, proudly supporting PSGL.